Tonight, we are diving headfirst into the heat of politics as we prepare for an upcoming event that has the power to reshape the landscape of our democracy. The writ has been gazetted. The date has been set for November 22nd, and nomination day is just around the corner on November 6th. Yes, you guessed it, we're talking about by-elections. This episode isn't just about the here and now. We're going to take a deep dive into the rich history of by-elections past, exploring the pivotal moments and game-changing results that have shaped our nation's political narrative. As we stand on the brink of another momentous electoral event, what can we learn from those who've come before us? We'll dissect voter turnout. By-elections often suffer from lower participation rates compared to general elections, but just why is this, and what does it mean for the representation of constituents? We'll explore the challenges and opportunities that arise when a by-election is called and the strategies to engage voters who may be experiencing election fatigue. Welcome to On the Record. I'm your host, Candino Knowles, filling in for Jerome Sawyer. Stay tuned as we get started on the other side of this break. Welcome back to On the Record. We are dissecting the upcoming by-election where we delve into the heart of democracy and explore the contenders vying for your vote. Last week, we introduced you to the concept of a by-election and gave you a glimpse of the candidates in the running. Today, we take a deeper dive, peeling back the layers to understand the individuals who seek to represent the West Grand Bahama and Bimini constituency and what they bring to the table. The political machineries of both major political parties, a fringe political group, and two independent candidates have been blazing down the campaign trail, all hoping to become that next representative. Let's meet the lineup. We begin with the governing party. A motorcade ushered in hundreds of party supporters to West End Grand Bahama last weekend as the Progressive Liberal Party held their first rally for their by-election candidate, Kingsley Smith Jr. The Prime Minister and party leader Philip Davis thanked party supporters for securing the West End and Bimini seat for the late Obi Wilchcombe.
We are fighting for the security and progress of our people. We are fighting for more Bahamian to own in our ownership in our economy. We are fighting to strengthen our borders, to grow more of what we eat at home, to invest in all of our family islands. We are fighting to stand up for our country on the world stage. We are fighting for justice and fairness and opportunity because that's what PLPs believe. That's what we are here for.
Smith telling supporters that he is not only a candidate but a son of the community, adding that he understands the needs, wants, and challenges. He says it's time to bring the vision to life.
We're not just dreaming, we're planning. From the upcoming government complex in 8 Mile Rock to turning West End into a boating hub. These aren't mere promises. They're a roadmap to our future. A future where our children are digitally connected in their schools. Streets are clean and our community can be resilient against future hurricanes.
He says while the PLP party saw something in him, this by-election is not about him, but rather moving the constituents forward. He says they must continue the vision started by Wilchcombe.
We are going to rebuild the West End Police Station, and we are going to build affordable housing homes. Prime Minister, I want to go ahead and ask right now that we name the government complex in 8 Mile Rock after our brother Obi Wilchcombe.
All right, as for the opposition, the Free National Movement was the first of the two major political parties to officially ratify its candidate. Bishop Ricardo Grant wasted no time hitting the campaign trail. We followed the day he touched down in his hometown.
The Grant family will be on the front line for the Free National Movement to make sure we bring home West Grand Bahama and Bimini.
It was a huge show of support outside the Grand Bahama International Airport Saturday morning as Free National Movement candidate for the West Grand Bahama and Bimini constituency, Bishop Ricardo Grant, stepped onto his native soil.
Ricardo Grant! Ricardo Grant! Ricardo Grant!
Grant's campaign began on Friday in Bimini and is now full steam ahead in West End. He says it's an honor to be selected.
Even now on the eve of what we consider to being a victory, and a victory for the people first, for the party, for the country, and for the way forward.
One of the founding members of the FNM, former minister and longtime Grand Bahama MP Maurice Moore, also showing his support.
I'm out here because the Bahamas needs new administration. What is going on now is no good, not even for today, and I won't talk about the future. And so what we need now, we need to get as many men, not half men, men like our candidate in Parliament.
Central Grand Bahama Member of Parliament Iram Lewis describing Grant as the right man for the job.
I believe in him. I believe in his philosophies. The party's behind him.
The day began with a motorcade into West Grand Bahama for a planned rally later Saturday evening. Reporting for Our News, I'm Natalia Hall.
All right, and the first fringe political party out of the gate was Coalition of Independents. Its leader, Lincoln Bain, insisting he's the man for the job. He calls himself a son of the soil. We'll get to his colorful entrance in just a bit, but now to Tennille Burrows, who is one of two independent candidates putting her name into the pool. A longtime activist with ties to the constituency, particularly in Grand Bahama, Burrows insisting her approach will be different.
As far as the constituency level concerns, I do believe in local government. I think we need improved and revamped local government throughout the Family Islands, and we also need to consider the Advisory Committee on Local Government for New Providence report and their suggestions to have that implemented there. Most members of Parliament in the major parties probably wouldn't be interested in implementing local government in New Providence because it would take away some of the member of Parliament's power. My main platform issue is related to child protection and ensuring that legislation is adequate. One of the things I propose is implementing mandatory minimum sentences for people who are convicted of crimes against children. So currently you can rape a child now and the maximum sentence is life. Typically, we've only seen sentences in the teens for people who have raped children, and I would like to see that change. And if a mandatory minimum sentence is implemented, that would mean we could say 20 years minimum to life as opposed to just whatever's the discretion of the judge.
Now, Burrows ran independently for the Elizabeth constituency in 2017 and is also the founder and past president of Rise Bahamas. What we've heard from this candidate thus far is that in addition to community needs, if neglected, legislation on child protection will be paramount. Meanwhile, economic advancement for the West Grand Bahama and Bimini constituency said to be the focus of the next independent candidate in the race. This Grand Bahamian shares why he's the next best representative while taking a swipe at others he says are nowhere to be found in the community.
No matter the issue, the Quan Swain is there. When we had the issue of the power company, the Quan was there. The issue of the Grand Bahama Port Authority, the Quan was there.
DeQuan Swain is no stranger to politics as he ran in the last general election as an independent candidate for the West Grand Bahama and Bimini constituency. While he did not win the seat, he says he's been active in the community.
If you could be a fly on my wall and my inbox, in my phone and my WhatsApp, and you see the stories from people in West Grand Bahama, from people in Bimini, you understand what they're going through. No power, no water, no light, no jobs, trying to decide between feeding their family or if they're going to turn on the power.
Swain says it's his mission to rectify some of the issues in West Grand Bahama. Now, for those who may say he doesn't have the experience to represent the community, here's what he had to say to that.
Anybody could say anything, but it's about the actions and it's about the track record. My track record in Grand Bahama and in Bimini can speak for itself.
Now, the Grand Bahama native says he's disappointed to see some aspirant candidates campaigning in the community, as he says they have not supported West Grand Bahama and Bimini for years.
Where were these people? We were advocating for proper housing for people in West Grand Bahama and Bimini. Where was these individuals? So the true question is, why is there a sudden interest in Grand Bahama?
He's asking residents to not be distracted by what he calls political tactics.
We don't need to be distracted by those who stereotype us as the people who, oh, you go there, you have a grill and chill, you give them a piece of chicken, you give them a 2 for $5 drink, and you put $100 in a t-shirt, and they will vote for you. We don't need to fit that stereotype. Yes, it's fun and hype to hop on the bandwagon and enjoy the festivities, but we have to remember what is truly important. It doesn't make sense going out campaigning and partying all day and then you go home to no power, no light, don't know how you're going to afford your bills next week, deciding between paying your power bill or feeding your children.
Well, swans swipe at the candidates, falling on deaf ears to some, especially for COI's leader Lincoln Bain, insisting he's a son of the soil. Take a look at his claim to the seat.
He's a familiar face, one known for standing up for the rights of all Bahamians. But tonight he says he's using his voice to represent the people of West Grand Bahama and Bimini in the upcoming by-election. Leader of the Coalition of Independence, Lincoln Bain, telling me today that the decision to drop his hat in the race was not on his own.
There were so many concerns that were hurting the people, and that's another reason I decided to represent them. You know, I could not see these kinds of concerns and just walk away and not do something.
As for the critics who may say that Bain is an outsider looking in, he says that's not the case.
I am a son of the soil. I have seeds that are planted here. So I'm not an outsider. I'm a person who fights for causes all over this country, and I feel that I can also represent this community. And the decision was only made by myself because the people of this community asked for it to be me.
Former Member of Parliament Obi Wilchcombe held the West Grand Bahama and Bimini seat until his recent passing, and many have said that the one who follows him will have big shoes to fill. But Bain says he believes he's the right man for the job.
Obadiah had some big shoes, and he had his own purpose for those shoes. But we need some different shoes, all right? No one's going to fill his shoes. His shoes is going on with him. We need some shoes, maybe some construction boots to help get some things done in this community.
The Coalition of Independence leader issuing this challenge to other parties ahead of the upcoming by-election.
We're calling for a debate so we can know what your plans is, and the people can choose the right man for the job, whether it's me or whether it's someone else.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Missick.
And there they are, nomination day. It's just days away. Our aim here is simple: to provide you with the comprehensive insight you need to make an informed decision when you step into the voting booth. Candidates are more than just names on a ballot. They are individuals with unique perspectives, experiences, and aspirations. By understanding what they stand for, though, and what they've accomplished, you can better gauge who aligns most closely with your values and aspirations. When we come back, our discussion continues with a seasoned veteran who is no stranger to this political process. On the Record, we'll be back right after this. We are taking a step back in time to gain insight into the context that has brought us to this point, our upcoming by-election. It marks the 15th time our nation has gone through this unique electoral experience since majority rule. That's right, there have been 15 by-elections before this one, each with its own story, its own characters, and their own impact on the political landscape. To help us navigate this historical journey and unearth the valuable lessons it holds, we're joined by a distinguished guest, a true expert in parliamentary procedures, and the guardian of our legislative history. On the Record welcomes back Mr. Maurice Tynes. Mr. Tynes, good to have you with us.
It's good to be here, Continue.
All right. I want to jump right in because in the last by-election of 2012, that was spurred by the resignation of former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram from his North Abaco seat. The then governing PLP won the seat. Political newcomer Renato Curry, he beat the FNM's Greg Gomez, ending Ingram and the FNM's 35-year stronghold in the constituency. Now, Mr. Tynes, I want you to tell us about that experience.
I remember the governing party at the time losing the election, and I remember Mr. Ingram coming on the television the night of the election and letting the nation know that he intended to resign not only as the party leader, but he intended to resign his seat in the House of Assembly.
Yeah.
I was kind of taken aback by that.
Right. Much of the nation, I think. Right?
Yes. Yeah. And sure enough, he did resign, and so a by-election had to follow.
Yeah. And how many by-elections have you witnessed or participated in? We talked about 15 of them, stemming from as far back as 1967.
Well, I've been in the House of Assembly since January 1993. So I've experienced a number of them.
Yeah. What is the role of the clerk? And you serving in that role were also part of facilitating and overseeing by-elections. Tell us about that.
Well, the clerk really, his role has very little to do with the by-election itself, but in the clerk really is he gives procedural advice to the speaker and the members of parliament. That's his fundamental role.
Yeah.
He also the clerk also is the custodian of the records of the House. So any official records that are laid on the table of the House, the clerk has constitutional responsibility for overseeing those records and making sure that they are kept properly.
Yeah.
The clerk also is the administrative head of the parliament. In the Bahamas, like most of the smaller parliaments in the Caribbean, we have one clerk of parliament. That's why he's the clerk of parliament. He's the clerk in charge of both chambers, and he is assisted by what is supposed to be deputy clerks and assistant clerks. So we're supposed to have sufficient a number of those people to be in place when even if both chambers meet at the same time.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened as yet.
I was going to say.
I mean,
do you think that?
I mean, we've had the both chambers meeting many times.
Yeah.
But what I was saying that we don't have sufficient staff.
Yeah.
To properly house them.
So what does that look like for you? What do you think is a necessary number or complement?
Well, I think there are 3 table clerks that sit at each table in both chambers. So 3. So you need a minimum of 6 clerks, and the table clerks would be more highly trained than the other parliamentary staff.
Sure.
So and once you get in the parliament at that position, it's almost a lifetime assignment.
Much like it has been for you.
Well, I came a little late.
Yeah.
Because I served in 2 other government departments prior to coming to the parliament.
Yeah. What made your experience as clerk different than the others? And would you say it was the most fulfilling?
Well, at that level, well, first of all, I worked in the Cabinet Office, and the Cabinet Office is the coordinating department in the public service, and everything that the government wants to do goes through the Cabinet Office at some point.
Sure.
And so that is a very good training ground because you get to see policy, whatever government policy, it has to come through there. Also in the Cabinet Office, which is something that I didn't agree with, the Cabinet Office staff, the Senate, the clerk of the Senate, I don't think it happens now, but used to come out of from the Cabinet Office. That's inappropriate because you have two different branches of government.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. So where should they be coming from?
From the Parliament itself, and that's why I was glad to see the government finally pass the Parliamentary Service Bill Act.
To at least, I guess, put things in motion,
Yes,
such as what you're discussing
so the
now.
Parliament can recruit, train its own staff.
Sure.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about the significant by-elections that have occurred, and obviously with your knowledge and experience, any memorable fact from one of those by-elections or the circumstances surrounding them that stand out for you?
The one that really stands out in my mind that was the 2010 by-election.
That was the one in
Elizabeth. Because it happened in my constituency.
Okay.
Which was the Elizabeth constituency at that time.
Yeah.
And it was a very close election. And it ended up in the election court.
It did.
And so so for those reasons, it really had I guess more meaning to me personally.
Yeah. And was there anything that stood out to you outside of the fact that it was in your constituency, but anything particularly from your vantage point?
Well, in by-elections, the government, the incumbent government, can put the resources of the state behind this candidate, and so you had in my constituency, you had people coming to your houses, to your house all the time,
Yeah. And speaking of that, how then would you say the demographic and political landscape of our nation has changed over the years? How do you think it's even influenced the outcomes of by-elections?
I think young people are now becoming more interested in the civic life of the country, and I think what has contributed to that is, in a small way, is when we started the youth parliament. So a number of the parliamentarians over the years came through the youth parliament. I guess that's where they got their
training.
Their first taste and appetite for politics.
Yeah.
And I was glad to be a part of that. We started. I remember the first one we had. The first one we had was a Caribbean. We hosted a conference, and during the conference we had a Caribbean youth parliament, and some of our young people participated in that and did very well.
A little earlier, we saw the current contenders, and I would love your thoughts on the current matchup in this upcoming by-election.
Well, I don't know the nominees from the main parties. I don't know them at all. So I think I think it's very difficult for an opposition party to win a by-election because the incumbent government has a huge advantage. I think I can only remember one by-election where the opposition party actually won the by-election and changed the seat in the House in that by-election, and I think that was the 1992 by-election.
Yeah.
Marco City, when Sir Cecil Wallace died, and they held a by-election, and even though the PLP was still the party, it was prior to the '92 general election, the opposition party won that by-election.
I'm curious, given your extensive experience and your ability to call up these past by-elections that we've seen, could you highlight some of the key challenges that candidates would typically face during campaigns?
I think the challenge would be similar to what they would have in a general election, except that, like I said, the political parties, the major political parties, would be able to concentrate their efforts in that one constituency.
Yeah.
In a general election, their resources have to be spread throughout the Commonwealth, but in a by-election, they concentrate on that one constituency,
right?
And I think that's where the government has a huge advantage.
Right. Are you a proponent of campaign finance reform? Since we're on the topic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. To the extent that I think there ought to be limits on the amount of money that corporations and companies can contribute, and I think there ought to be a procedure and a mandate for them to disclose, for parties to disclose where their contributions come from, at least the ones from companies, and because you want to know what is driving the government's policy.
Sure. Who's funding it?
Yeah.
Who's behind that funding, and who's perhaps behind campaigns, right?
Yeah. So I think putting limits on companies, the amount of money companies can contribute and donate, firstly, and then the requirement for them to disclose, for the parties to disclose.
All right, Mr. Tynes, and just a quick clarification on that by-election we were talking about with Sir Cecil Wallace Whitfield.
Yeah, I wanted to make a correction. I think I may have said that the by-election was to
1992.
Yes.
But it was 1990.
It was 1990.
Absolutely. And again, as we go through the list from as far back as 1967, it's interesting that we've had 15 of them. I'm still stuck on that number, but I want to ask you about this notion because it's something that we've heard said time and time again, that a by-election could be seen as a referendum on the sitting government. Throughout the history of these past 15 by-elections, and I have them all laid out here, and it points out that a number of governing parties either retained a seat or lost a seat, right? And we've seen that. But is it a good yardstick, though, to use when it comes to, let's say, determining a government's level of performance or perception of the outcome shaping their future chances?
If you look at the history of it, it doesn't seem so. But the one that may have been different from many others was the 1990 by-election, when the death of Cecil Wallace Whitfield occasioned the by-election. And that by-election occurred after Mr. Ingram became the leader of the Free National Movement. And I think you can say that by winning that election, even though it was held in Marco City in a staunchly Free National Movement area, it kind of foretold what is going to happen in the next general election. Sure. And it was also another part of it was that it was at the end of 25 years of Sir Lyndon and the PLP's rule.
Sure.
So, I think that one you can say for sure that it kind of...
Yeah, there was certainty there just based on the
But
tone.
the others, if you look at the other ones, it didn't tell you too much about what's going to happen at the next general election.
Yeah. What advice, though, would you offer to first-time candidates and voters who are participating in this by-election, especially considering some of the lessons learned from the by-elections that we've already talked about?
What I learned from that same by-election in 2010 was that every vote counts. So everybody needs to go. I think the PLP won that by 2 or 3 votes. Even after election court.
Went to election court.
Yes.
I was going to say.
So
it turned out to be.
So that showed that it is so important for everybody to participate in the process. If you're 18 since the last general election, go and register and vote, because a lot of countries are dying and fighting for this opportunity to be able to vote and participate in their country's democracy or in their rule.
Yeah. Mr. Tynes, thank you so much for guiding us through this by-election process and obviously taking us through the historical significance of it. Very insightful and invaluable perspective that hopefully has helped to shape our audience's perspective moving forward into this next by-election. So thank you so much for coming back to the show.
Well, it was a pleasure.
All right, after the break, we're going to delve into the world of youth and politics, a world where passion and pragmatism converge, where new voices rise, and where the future of our nation takes shape. Stay with us as we embark on this insightful journey together. You're watching On the Record. We'll be back right after this. As we continue our exploration of the upcoming by-election and the factors that will shape its outcome, we turn our focus to a crucial element, the next generation. In this segment, we are honored to be joined by 2 exceptional individuals who are at the forefront of youth engagement in our political landscape. They are both the leaders in youth branches of the 2 major political parties. On the Record welcomes Brandy Maynard, Secretary General of the Torchbearers Youth Association, and Jordan Clark, Chairman of the Progressive Young Liberals. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I want to dive right in with you guys because I want to know, first of all, what sparked your interest in politics? We'll start with you, Jordan.
I always get this question, and I honestly don't know. I just heard the stories of my grandmother and great-grandmother taking me to PLP rallies, and it's been history since then. Since primary school, it's always been PLP all the way, and so that's, I think it's just them sparking it in me, and it just became a passion.
Yeah. Same for you, Brandy, or different?
So it's
different
a little
story?
different for me. I actually had one grandmother who was a staunch F&M and one who was a staunch PLP. So I was exposed to both sides.
I'm sure many people at home can relate to that.
Yes, I'm probably sure. But I can remember vividly attending a F&M rally with my mom, her sister, my uncle, my little sister. And the crowd over the sea of red, it's just an excitement was ignited in me. And I mean, I kind of strayed away from it for a while. I tried to run away so, but
see, once that spark has happened, it's hard to get away from it, right?
Listen.
And so you're both here,
yes.
right? And I want to ask both of you, what initiatives or campaigns have your youth arms undertaken to support your party? And I guess, Jordan, we'll start with you on that.
Okay, so actually the moment we found out when the campaign would start, we have chairs in PYL for Grand Bahama and Bimini, and so PYL, Bimini's chair, gave me a call and he said to me, what do you need from me? What does the party need from us? And so I said, the best thing I could tell you right now, make sure numbers are numbering and make sure the support is there from PYL. I told him, make sure when they ask for poll workers, when they ask for campaign coordinators, and when they ask for generals just on the ground, and basically just make sure, you know, the numbers are there and the support, the party sees that the support is there in Grand Bahama. And in Bimini, and similar to Grand Bahama, with that aspect, they just told me to let them know, and I spoke with the Secretary General of the party and Chairman of the party, and those are the instructions to make sure the support.
So Brandy, is it same for you?
So TY is national, and we have members all over. We also have an association in Grand Bahama, TY Grand Bahama. Shout out, guys. And they are phenomenal. From day one, it's been, we've all worked together. Even our association in North Luther, everyone has come together to lend a hand towards getting the victory. But one of the things we've been doing, we work on social media campaigns. We have door-to-door persons. If you need anything, TY is there and present.
Obviously, front and center is this upcoming by-election in West GB and Bimini. I wonder, though, how are you engaging and mobilizing young voters to participate in that process or any political process?
So in this particular by-election, our candidate, Bishop Ricardo Grant, he has been in the community for quite some time now. So the young people on the ground know him. They engage with him. He is a mentor to some of them. And with TYA Grand Bahama coming alongside, it has been quite easy to engage the young people on the ground. They are very receptive to him. And in terms of initiatives that we are doing, walkabouts, door-to-doors, you'll see a lot more things coming out. I'm going to keep that.
And Jordan, I want to ask you, would you say that PYL members are the same for the PLP's candidate?
Definitely.
Is it that same engagement?
Yeah, specifically, Grand Bahama has been behind him, but Bimini has had a burst of energy behind Mr. Kingsley Smith. And so they've been, from the parliamentary registry, opened up the office for change of registration or new voters who recently became 18. They were picking them up in golf carts. You know, everybody in Bimini know everybody. So picking them up in the golf carts and taking them to go and get registered if they didn't have rides. Even just going in with them to make sure the process was smooth with them and all that. So they've definitely taken the helm on making sure young people are registered.
So let me ask you, Jordan, what would you say are the key strengths and qualities that your party's candidate brings to this by-election, particularly for young voters?
Well, he is the younger of the two, so that's a start. But Mr. Smith, he comes with a youthfulness himself, his personality, his drive for youth engagement. Prior to him becoming the candidate, he was always one of those that reached out to me and try encourage me to be a part of the party's men's branch, where he served as an executive. And his work in Grand Bahama with the baseball program that he started and worked alongside with the young men and women there. I think he has the tools and he has the mindset to ensure that young people in Grand Bahama and Bimini are represented and are supported by him.
Do you think him being the younger of the two is enough to sway younger voters?
No. But I definitely think it's a plus. think it's a plus.
I'm just putting that out there. But Brandy, I wanna ask you the same thing, because obviously people want representation and they want to know the people who they are supporting are going to be representative of their needs, right? But particularly for young voters, their needs may not necessarily reflect the needs of others in the community, while I think for the wider constituency, the needs may be similar, but we all have our different nuances and want different things. What would you say then is your candidate's key strengths when it comes to providing representation for younger voters in the constituency?
Bishop Grant and Mrs. Grant have been influential in a lot of the young people in Grand Bahama's lives. I know personally, someone told me a story of how their female singing girl group, gospel girl group, were able to get a head start because he welcomed them in and ushered them in and allowed them to perform at the different church events, and they were able to get their break based off of that opportunity. Yeah. But he does that for so many people, especially young people, because he believes in young people. He believes that and knows and understands. He's very receptive to the youth, especially within West Grand Bahama and Bimini. Yeah. And his goal is to facilitate a future for them, to push their needs, to make sure that they have what they need in order to succeed.
Yeah. Jordan, what challenges have you encountered in your efforts to increase voter turnout among young people? How do you overcome them?
A big issue has been the comparison of the two parties, or none is different from the other, and so my biggest response, and I don't like to argue with them because I don't think it's going to get the response that I'm looking for. So I usually try to convince them, what party is giving you most of the national organizations that we now benefit from, which party is giving you the National Insurance Board, the University of the Bahamas, and all the other Defense Force, all these other organizations that we benefit from. And then I go on the basis of think about which party has been more lenient to the Bahamian people, more accepted to the Bahamian people.
So Brandy, I want to bring you in because I want to ask the same thing about the challenges that perhaps you've encountered in your efforts to increase voter turnout among young people.
I think we spoke about this a little earlier, but people want to know what's in it for them. The reality of it is what's in it for me. Yeah. And a lot of times you do get the one party similar to the next, but fundamentally we're grossly different. When it comes to speaking to individuals personally, I always let them know up front, if you allow someone else to make your decision for you by not voting or by spoiling your ballot, that defeats the purpose of you having a voice. You have to stand up for you, and voting is a part of that. So you have to take the responsibility in your hands. You can't complain about something if you're not willing to actually put an input towards changing it.
By participating in the process.
All right.
I want to leave it there for now. But when we come back from the break, we're going to challenge our young leaders. Have parties truly dotted their I's and crossed their T's, or is someone missing in the midst of campaigning? Stay tuned. We'll be right back right after this. Welcome back to On the Record. We are joined by PYL Chairman Jordan Clark and Secretary General of the Torchbearers Youth Association, Brandy Maynard. Again, guys, thanks so much for being here. Before we went to the break, we had talked about the party's positioning as well as how it was connecting with younger voters. One of the things you said, Jordan, was the fact that you hear often from younger voters that both parties are one and the same. Why do you think we're hearing that? Why do you think they think that way? You want to take that first, Brandy, or Jordan?
Actually like this question. Over the years, we have had a cycle. FNM, PLP, PLP, FNM, FNM, PLP, FNM, PLP, FNM. And it seems as though one thing is passed on to the next, to the next, to the next, and the can continuously gets kicked down the road. Now, one thing that we don't talk about, that we should as young people in general, is the fact that if a good initiative for Bahamians is started in one administration, why is it that all of a sudden it's cut when the next administration comes in?
It reminds me of the saying, the stop, review, and cancel policy, right? Yeah.
And I think if we are looking for true
and that's on both sides,
growth,
right?
if we're looking for true growth, if we're looking for expansion, if we're looking to be this best Bahamas that we believe that we are, and that we tell people that we are, and that I know that we can be, then there comes a point where you have to stop kicking the can down the road and pick it up and say, okay, this is something that's really good. For instance, the food feeding program. We had the national food feeding program. We had stopped it. Where Hands for Hunger, and I believe it was a few others who were involved in it as well. That stopped, and food that I could say personally that we benefited from, especially living in a home where it's one person bringing in income. All of a sudden, that stopped now. And when you go to the food store nowadays in this inflation, it's absolutely ridiculous.
So your response to that, Jordan?
I agree with Brandy with the stop, review, and cancel policy. And I find that a lot of the young people also say, and with the accusations that go across both politicians from both sides of the divide, is the accusations of theft and all these other things that come with it. They always say, you know, when an F&M administration is voted out, oh, this one did that, the next and the third. When a PLP administration is voted out, they say this one did that, the next and the third. And so they always, and that's one of the common denominators with why they feel as though both parties are the same, because of the accusations. When I don't think in recent time any politician has been convicted of a crime, and so I can't see why. But it's always the noise in the market, right? We never pay attention to the price of the fish. It's always the noise we listen to and we run with.
Sure. Last week, we spoke to several millennials about their thoughts on the overall political process. Jason Brannon of Spectrum Politics, he mentioned his feelings on a particular group that seemingly ends up overlooked. Let's take a look.
It says there that there is interest, but then when it comes to knowledge and understanding, there's a dip-off, if I'm listening to those numbers correctly. And again, I think that speaks to the level of confusion as it relates to the political process. We are not, and I think all political parties to some extent are guilty of this, because they're so busy talking to their bases, those people who are politically engaged, motivated. They're coming to the cookouts, they're coming to the constituency meetings. They have some kind of vested interest in the process. Political parties don't find a need to talk to swing voters and the people on the edges who don't have that same level of attention span, patience, whatever you want to call it, until it's election time. And so you've got people who want to contribute positively to the country and make informed decisions, but it's like, wait a minute, when you could talk to me.
All right. I want to know your thoughts on Jason's opinion. Brandy?
Okay, so he's absolutely right. I think that is something that within our party and by extension, within F&M and by extension TYA, we've recognized that, okay, you can't keep it within these four walls all the time. You have to go out and outreach people.
You have to be in the community,
yes,
right?
in the community. And one of the things, even though you're a part of the community, you have to learn how to engage within the community. So that's where social media, that is where your messaging comes in, that is where just being able to walk up to someone and say, hey, it's so nice to meet you. My name is Brandy Maynard.
But that's how you
I'm
connect.
an F&M.
That's how you connect with people,
you connect
right?
with them. Beyond,
which is very important,
just,
I think, if it is that you're trying to represent
most definitely.
People, right?
But it goes beyond just within the lines of an election or by-election.
Jordan?
I agree, and it's funny with the comment that Jason made about only engaging swing voters when it's time for an election. When I became the polling captain in Pinewood, I said to the candidate at the time, now member of parliament, and I say to PYL at the time, we're not here for the PLPs. We know the PLPs are going to vote PLP. We are here to convince the swing voters, and that's not just 2 and 3 years out, that's from election day and on. When I took chairmanship in 2021, I said that to PYL. We are here for the swing voters, the young people who don't know why they should vote PLP. I appreciate that comment from Jason.
Any other demographic that you feel has been missed or forgotten during campaign season?
So historically, you see a lot of candidates doing something for young kids or for the older people, but the millennials are kind of left in a limbo of, and the question really they want to know is, okay,
and, I mean,
what is it
millennials
for
are
me?
the influencer generation at the moment, correct?
Yeah. So it's okay. What can you do for me, or what are you offering me? And it's more of a, not what can you do for me in terms of monetary wise, but in terms of how are you going to assist me with making my life better?
Right, positioning me to be able to economically sustain.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And Jordan, your thoughts?
I agree with that, but there was one that stood out to me after I listened to a couple of older persons speak. It's the sick and shut-ins. Those people that cannot go out and walk the streets or cannot walk out to to their front door when you come and walk by. I've heard on the campaign trail, I heard that from a few family members saying, my mother can't leave her bed for X reason, and so I always feel like y'all don't care about her. And I've heard that multiple times, and so I think that's a demographic of people that we always seem to miss out on.
Just quickly, just want a quick response to this. How do you get young people to engage in a more meaningful way in the political process, though? Jordan?
I think you just let them speak. You just ask them a question and you just let them tell you how they feel. And then you pull it around and you say, so why don't you come out to this meeting where a cabinet minister is going to be, or why don't you sign up for youth in parliament or youth in senate, so that way your voice is heard, and I can guarantee they won't be falling deaf ears.
Yeah. And do you agree there, Brian?
I definitely do agree with Jordan. Additionally, I think when you give young persons the opportunity, you have to now let loosen the reins.
Sure. Allow
and
them
as
to
they
thrive,
as they
right?
prove themselves, and you allow them to take more responsibility on, that is what sustains them in this process. Because without that, it's like, okay, what am I here for?
Finally, what message or advice would you offer to young constituents who, they might be undecided or apathetic about, participating in the by-election or any election for that matter? What do you say to them?
Get to know your candidates. Please get to know each one of your candidates. Read their manifestos. Do not be afraid to ask them questions. They are there to answer your questions. And go out and vote. Don't be afraid. This is your voice. This is your chance. Take it.
Jordan?
I agree wholeheartedly with what Brandy said. Take advantage of them walking up to you and asking for your support. Take advantage of the party presenting them at a rally or a church service, any event, and you don't be afraid to ask the tough questions, because if they can't answer it, then that's a problem.
Now, the PLP says it's focused on retaining the seat. The FNM says it's going to win the seat.
Yes.
Final thoughts?
No retreat, no surrender.
This one for OB.
All right, thank you so much, Brandy and Jordan, sorry. It's been a real pleasure having both of you. And I just want to encourage you both on your journey and continue to share your perspectives, particularly with the young people, young voters whose voices are also important in this. So Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
I want to encourage every young voter listening to our broadcast to not just see your vote as a solitary act, but as a domino that can make history. And to our seasoned citizens, remember there is power in inspiring and guiding our youth, for their success is our collective success. We hope you've enjoyed our show tonight. Special thanks to all of our guests, the entire On The Record team, and of course, you, the audience, for watching. Once again, I'm Candino Nold. See you next time on The Record.